Sinisterism is about finding the primal aspects of the left-hand path, primal in history, primal in the psyche, thus obtaining truth. Thomas LeRoy.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to your dose of sinister heathenry. But for those new to the channel, I'm Thomas LeRoy, founder of the International Left-Hand Path organization, the Sect of the Horn God. The Sect is an educational foundation created to not only make those with the black flame aware of its glow, but to also restore the shadow aspects to the ancient gods by going deep into the past, not only historically, but also psychologically. For the primordial depths of the psyche are limitless. So, if this sounds interesting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to learn more, join the organization, the Sect of the Horn God, at the link down below. Thank you.
Well, kind of moving on with, on your left-hand path journey and everything, there is an organization that came to be, the Sect of the Horn God, which a lot of people know about. And how did that come to be, Thomas? I mean, what was the thought of why you formed the organization and everything?
Well, I identified, like I said, as a Satanist. Like LeVay said, Satanists are born. They're not, there's no proselytizing.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's got to be in you. So identifying as a Satanist at the base, I also became obsessed with history, pretty much, the Dark Ages, if you will, ancient history, the Celts. And from there, I got interested in those ancient pagan gods. Now, for years, I was an event organizer on a winery here in Northern California. And we would put on Renaissance fairs and metal festivals and jazz and blues and whatever, but we also put on a pagan festival.
Right.
And I noticed that the individuals at this pagan festival, their interpretation of the horn god wasn't my interpretation of what, let's say, the horn god was. Theirs was really soft. It was a neutered version of what I thought the ancient pagans most likely prayed to. You know what I mean? Because the gods aren't, they're more, the ancient pagan gods are more human in a sense that they're not good nor bad. They're like the weather, sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes, a storm can ruin your day, if you will. And that's the way I saw the gods. They were balanced, but there was this horrible imbalance within their interpretation of the gods. They had been influenced by Christianity, whether they realized it or not. They had like good gods and bad gods and so on and so forth. Like, for instance, the Odinists, the modern Odinist interpretation of Odin. Odin isn't a Norse Yahweh. He's a very dark entity. And few people realize that. They just see him as the father of the gods and so on and so forth. So anyway, not long after that first event, that was in 2011, I thought, I'd met a couple other people that were on the left-hand path, including my wife too. She was pivotal, Lisa. I thought, an organization that would basically return the testicles to the horn god. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, the pagans, the modern pagans, the Wiccans, so on and so forth, just neutered this guy. So it was November 1st, 2011, we started the organization, and the rest is history.
Nice, nice. Well, Thomas, for people that might not know, what is the sect of the Horn God? What is it all about?
It's situated more as let's say, a university, if you will, than it is a church.
Okay.
We have all different kinds of people on the left-hand path. We have Satanists, Setians, Luciferians, Odinists, maybe even some people who delve into the Eastern aspects of the left-hand path, and so on and so forth. So on and so forth. We allow the individual to choose what entity, God or whatever, they want to, let's say, in a sense, communicate with. You know what I mean? As because we see these entities as avatars of the archetypes of the collective unconscious. They're 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 more than metaphor, but less than what you could necessarily call real, if that makes any sense. I'm not a fan of the real or not real argument, the theist atheist argument that's very common within Satanism. I avoid it. I don't like it, because to me what's important is what you get out of these beings, if you will. They can either, like I've stated before, they can either be the wind at your back or they can be pulling your leash.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we emphasize in the organization. And we tend to call our philosophy Sinisterism instead of Satanism. Because
Yeah, I
the
wanted to
word,
get into that too.
yeah,
Because yeah. Go ahead.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
because sinister, the word sinister comes from the Latin word for left or left-handed. If you have an eclectic interpretation of the path, meaning you take a little bit from different aspects to create your own, and that's the way it should be on the left-hand path, because it's a very individualist path. You take a little bit here and there. If you're very eclectic, you would basically be a sinistrist, if you will, because a lot of people are getting frustrated with modern Satanism, unfortunately. Namely because of a certain organization, the Satanic Temple, as I know you're very aware of. Well, initially, I think like you too, because you had interviewed a few of them way back in the day. Initially, they seemed intriguing. They seemed interesting. But then you quickly realize that they aren't satanic as we understand what satanic or Satanism means.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will not say they aren't satanic. I would just call them Satanists of the right-hand path, because their emphasis isn't on the individual, it's on the collective. They want to have an effect on the status quo, when Satanism, as from the left-hand path, has its emphasis is on the individual.
Right.
You know what I mean? And with their protesting and so on and stuff, they're very political. Now, I've talked to Lucian Greaves in the past. He's actually a pretty good guy. I have nothing personal against him, but it's unfortunate that they use the term Satan. They should have maybe, I don't know, used devil or something else, you know?
Right. Anything other than Satanism, maybe just
Yeah.
it just I don't know.
And they insist that they are, well, they're from the Parisian Satanists. They stem from the Parisian Satanists of the 1800s, you know, the absinthe drinking poets who commit suicide while still young. You know what I
Right.
mean? That whole clique, if you will.